Thank you, Father. Father Kelly, Reverend Fathers, sisters, any honored guests, and my brothers. 3 years ago, I heard my first priest hero talk. And although I'd never really heard one of them before, I started to catch on fairly quickly. As I listened, one priest immediately sprang to mind. And even after having the blessing of meeting many other holy and inspiring priests in recent years, I've always known that my priest hero would be my pastor, Father Michael Lane. And to be honest, I've been looking forward to honoring him for a really long time. For as long as I've known Father Michael, I've been blessed by his example as a spiritual father and a faithful servant of Christ. When I was in junior high, my mother went to work in the rectory, and I had the grace of seeing him in his day-to-day interactions with his parishioners. And since entering seminary, I've gotten to spend more and more time with Father Michael and see exactly what the priesthood means to him. However, in all the time I've spent with Father Michael, there have been 3 things that have always stuck out to me. The first is his willingness to accept whatever God decides to give to him. The second is his desire to continuously build up the part of the church that he's been assigned to. And the third, and perhaps most important, is his total and central love for Christ in the Eucharist. At the end of a long day, whether it's filled with a number of events for the school, multiple masses, or some very, very chatty parishioners, Father Michael will often laugh and jokingly say to those around him, "All this and heaven too." While he may mean it as a joke, I think this comment is a good example of how Father approaches each new challenge that God gives him. Rather than allow himself to be caught up in the constant series of obligations or the daily routine, Father Michael always keeps God's providence at the center. I truly believe that he views even those most difficult moments as gifts scattered across the path to heaven. I remember just a few months ago, he was going to see our bishop about whether we would be able to continue with his long-standing project of building a new church at our parish. And at least back then, there was a very real chance he would be turned down. Despite this chance for worry or complaint, there's one message that he insisted on sending to our parishioners: to pray for our bishop and that God's will be done. It is this level of surrender, as well as obedience to his bishop, that I believe has inspired me and so many others. Another trait of Father Michael that I think becomes evident to anyone who really gets to know him and his desire is that he wants to build up the church. Externally, this is often taking the form of real buildings. I already mentioned his work to begin building a new church, and that's just the latest of several buildings he has built in the last decade or so, including a gym, a chapel, and multiple halls in our school. And he's always been able to accomplish this through the help of God and a trust in the generosity of those he ministers to. And that's just what's apparent from the outside. Father is a fierce proponent of building up the church through encouraging vocations. When I was still in grade school, he worked hard to bring a convent of Dominican sisters to the parish to teach at the local school. One of those sisters ended up being a major inspiration in my own vocation. In the years since I've entered seminary, I've come to know nearly a dozen young men, either priests or seminarians, who've been directly inspired by him to pursue the priesthood. Whether they were parishioners such as myself, spiritual directees, or even former employees, each of them have been encouraged to pursue and discern God's path for them, including all 3 of our current transitional deacons. All of these things, I think, point to Father Michael's great love for the church and his desire to see her continued growth. Finally, I don't think I could talk about Father Michael's priesthood without mentioning his great love for the Eucharist, especially through adoration. Father has been one of the largest supporters of adoration throughout the Joliet Diocese. He's spoken at multiple parishes to encourage the practice and has started a perpetual adoration chapel at both of his last 2 parishes. At the heart of this devotion is a love for Christ working in others. He once remarked to me that if there was anything he'd done as a priest that was going to save souls and get him to heaven, it was going to be the adoration chapel he had started at our parish. Even when someone commented to him about how many vocations he had inspired, he attributed it all to the prayers that had happened in the chapel at our parish. This devotion to the Eucharist, as the source and summit of all our faith, has always been a massive inspiration to me and many others, and I hope to one day carry this on into my own priesthood. Now, I could go on for a while longer talking about all the ways that Father Michael has inspired me, But Father Gitter gave me a pretty strict 5-minute time limit, so I'm going to start to wrap it up. So for now, I'll simply say, in thanksgiving for Father Michael Lane and all that God has worked in him, praise be Jesus Christ.